Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of NinaRibena's Art Journal Prompts and More. It's week 2 of this month's festive prompt and I want to do my final calendar page. Some of us within the Facebook group are putting calendar pages together each month to make a 2019 calendar. So, you know, this is the last month. I'm going to be working on watercolour paper today. This is the Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolour paper and it is £200, 425 GSM. So nice and thick and sturdy. Here it is. So, you know, really thick watercolour paper. Reason I'm working on watercolour paper today is because I want to use some of my Brushos. I know that some of you have been asking for me to do some Brusho projects, so I thought I'd do one today for my Christmas page. I'm going to be using Brusho in purple and ultramarine blue, so that's those. Brushos are crystal watercolours and they come in these plastic tubs here. I've pierced a hole in the top, a very fine hole, because a little of this stuff goes a very, very long way. It's similar to the Ken Oliver colour bursts and that kind of thing. You'll see what it looks like when I start playing with it. I'm also going to be using some of the Cosmic Shimmer Pixie powder in Silver Dream, just because I want to add a little bit of sparkle to my background. These are flat. These are mica-based powder. Any mica-based powder will work, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sprinkling these on from a height. Let me just give this a tap just to make sure that I've got none in the nozzle. So this, as I say, is the Cosmic Shimmer Pixie powder, and you'll see that we've got this very fine nozzle. It's just very fine paper, and I am just going to tap on the side of the bottle like this just to release just a little bit of this silver pixie powder, just to add a bit of glitz to my background. So there we go. You don't need too much. A little of this goes a very long way. Tap my Brusho. So this time I'm going to come in with some of the ultramarine blue, and again I'm going to hold my powder up from a height just so that I get a very fine sprinkling, because as I say, a little of this stuff goes a long way, and you can see that I am just tapping on the side of the tub here. Just on dry watercolour paper. This watercolour paper, as I say, is dry, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the purple. I'm just tapping it on my desk just to make sure that nothing is clogged in that hole. Now these are multi-tonal powders, so when I spritz in a second with water you'll see lots and lots of different colours, but the blue and the purple to me are, you know, very Christmassy colours, so these were the ones that I wanted to use. Then I've got a spray water bottle, and again I'm going to hold that up from a height, because if I hold it too close down it's just going to spray all of that over my page and I'll just end up with one colour block, whereas I want to just release those sprinkles and get sort of like a splattered background. So I'm just going to spray very finely with my water bottle, and this is where you can see that the magic is happening. I'm not adding too much water, just enough to just get that mottled effect, and then I'm just going to blow dry this with my heat tool. Now I've got 3 different backgrounds here because I want to make one for my calendar page. These all measure 6 inches by 4 inches. They are standard postcard sizes, so they all come out slightly differently, and I don't know whether, if I tilt it like this, whether you can see that shimmer. I think you can, just from the mica. If you look here, it's just beautiful. It's not, you know, really in your face. It just adds something really subtle. And of course these are all different. You know, this one's got more purple, this one's more blue. Just really, really pretty. I'm going to work on this one here, and I've got some white paint which I've spread out on a piece of palette paper. This is just regular titanium white acrylic paint, and I've got a piece of bubble wrap, and I am just going to dip my bubble wrap into the white paint, and I'm going to add some of this. Let me just make sure I'm in frame to my background, just to give the illusion of some snow. And I'm going to do this all over the page, concentrating on the top half because I'm going to be covering up the bottom in a second. So it's just really the top half that I want, like this, and I shall do this with all 3 of my backgrounds. The white paint on my backgrounds is dry now, and this is what they look like. I really like that effect. You can see that I've concentrated more on this top half here and not so much on the bottom, and you'll see why shortly. So now what I want to do is use some Stays On ink in Royal Purple and a Snowflake Stamp. Let me just see if I can see what brand this is. I think it's a Do Crafts brand. This is the stamp here. It came in this set, so I've just put it onto an acrylic block. Let's just take one at a time. We'll start off with this one here. As I say, Stays On in Royal Purple, and I'm just going to add some snowflakes to my background. Just building up those layers, and you all know how I love a busy background, so you know the fact that it's getting busier and busier does not bother me. So hold it down for a second just to get the ink to take. There we go, and that stands out nicely. And I'm just going to keep moving my stamp pad around like this. I'm still working on a piece of kitchen towel just to catch any of the excess ink that I don't want. And which way around do I want that? Let's have a look. We'll have it like that. The bottom bit, as I say, will end up getting covered up, but that's okay, that's fine. There we go, and then I'll move it round and just do this edge here, and I'm going to carry on and do the same with the other cards. So this is how my backgrounds are looking now. I just love these. I just think that adding these snowflakes has just helped to pull that all together. So what I want to do now, let me just work on one at a time. I'm going to use some fibre paste. Any type of modelling paste will do for this, you know, even household polyfiller, that kind of thing. I want to add some snow to the bottom of my page. Now this fibre paste here is a bit like paper. It's sort of quite porous and fibrousy, but as I say, any type of modelling paste will do, and I'm trying to create the illusion of snow, so I'm just going to add some to the bottom of my page like this to create sort of like a snow hill. And I might need a couple of coats, and I'm going to dry in between, and I'm just, you know, using my palette knife just to apply this on in a nice thick layer. So it's just going to take a bit of time for this to dry. I will be able to use my heat tool, but I want a nice thick hill, and I can you know, wipe that up and spread it back on like this. And I'm going to do this with all of them and then dry this with my heat tool. This is what my cards are looking like, and you can see that some of the colour, the watercolour, is starting to bleed through. I am absolutely not worried about that. These have had a quick blast with the heat tool, and I'm just going to set this off to one side now to dry. I want to make some embellishments for my postcards. Let me just make sure that I'm in frame. I've got this craft paper tree. This was sent to me by Noit Berkovich in Happy Mail a couple of years ago. I don't want to use this because I don't want the hole in the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw around this and use it as a template, and I'm going to cut it out. So I'm just using a pencil, and I'm working on some 300 GSM cardstock so that I've got something, you know, stable as the craft tree itself. And then I am going to fussy cut this out. And the best thing to do is just to trim it down to size to start off with, and then use some nail scissors, just because, you know, this is going to be quite tricky to get into. So I'm going to use nail scissors just to get in to those little awkward areas. My tree's cut out, so that's how it looks like, and I've just, this side here with the pencil marks was actually straighter than the reverse side, so I've just rubbed out the pencil marks. And what I want to do now is just emboss this with some silver embossing powder. So I've got my clear embossing stamp pad here, and I'm just pressing my Christmas tree into the embossing ink like this, and it's easier to add the tree, the cardboard to the ink than the ink to the cardboard. So I'm just making sure that it's got good coverage like that. And then I'm going to work on a piece of paper, and I'm going to use some silver embossing powder. So I am just going to sprinkle that all over my tree. And then I'm just going to heat set this with my heat tool, and it might need a couple of coats. I'll see how it looks after the first one. Let me just grab something, a pokey tool or something, just to lift this up. Tap off the excess, and it looks as if I've smudged it with my finger here, so let's just add a tiny bit more ink, and I'm just going to heat set that with my heat tool. So let's just watch this change colour. I'm working up the top, and there we go. My tree's had 2 coats of the embossing glitter, and I just want to decorate it. I've got some of this purple floristry wire. This is very thin floristry wire, and I don't know whether you can tell, this one's slightly bumpy. I've got 2. This is a slightly thicker one, and this one's completely flat. I'm going to use the thinner one just because I think it will be easier to wrap around my tree. And what I'm going to do is just bend it over the back like this, and I am just going to decorate my tree like this. I'm just going to wrap this wire around my tree. I'm going to go around my base like this, just to give it a bit of decoration. This is just really easy. Now, the floristry wire you can get from most major craft stores, so places like Hobbycraft, Hobby Lobby, anywhere like that should sell it. But you know, for ladies in the UK, if you have a look on Google, I bet you have a floristry wholesalers near you, and even go to a local florist's might even sell you some as well, because this is the kind of thing that they will all have. So I'm just going to go over it like this. How shall I do that then? I can come up here like this. There we go, and that's just given my tree a little bit of decoration. That's what it looks like on the back, so I'm just going to trim this now, snip that off, and then I can just wrap this through here just to stop it coming undone. So there we go, we'll just wrap that round a couple of times. Come here, you. Here we go. And then, in fact, I'll wrap it round once more, and then I can just snip the excess off. There we go. And I can just take that round there if I want to as well, just to tighten that bit up. Let's just put that through there. There we go. And then let me just see if I can find some pliers just to pull that tight. There we go. And that's what my tree looks like so far. Now I want to add some embellishments to my tree. I'm going to start off by adding some of these Nouveau drops. You could use any brand you like. It's not only Nouveau drops that will do the job for this. And I'm just going to, let's have a look. How do I want to do this? Just add a star to the top of my tree. Oh. Like that. This is just dimensional paint. And then I'm going to add some baubles as well. And then I'm going to have to set this aside to dry. There we go. I think that will do. So that's what it looks like if I hold it up. So I'm going to put this aside for the Nouveau drops to dry. And as if by magic, here's one I prepared earlier. So that's all ready to go onto my card. Now I want to see if I can make a different type of Christmas tree embellishment. This is just a piece of scrap paper. This is just white and sky blue light paint that I have sponged on with one of these sponges. This is just from my stash, but that's how that was made. I think I put the white on first, if I can tell, and then sky blue light by the looks of it on top. And I'm going to use this Christmas tree stamp. I think this is a Do Craft stamp. I'm going to use my embossing powder, embossing ink again, and I'm just going to put some on my Christmas tree. Of course, the Christmas tree is bigger than the stamp itself, but that's okay. I'm just going to have to move it around until the whole thing is well covered. There we go, that should do. And then I'm going to stamp it onto a piece of this blue paper, this blue cardstock. We'll have it there like that. So leave it a second or two for the ink to catch and then lift that up. And I'm going to use some silver embossing powder again. So let's give that a shake and then sprinkle that on. And then again, I'm just going to heat set that with my heat tool. So this is what this tree looks like. And I'm just going to put that to one side for a moment because I want to do another one on this paper here. Now, I don't know whether you can remember this for those of you that have been following me for a while. This was salad spinner art, and this is just perfect. I love all the purples. So I am going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to stamp my Christmas tree with clear embossing ink. Here we go. Let me just pull it into frame so that you can see what I'm doing. So just making sure that I get plenty of ink on my stamp. There we go. And then I am going to stamp this. I want this light purple area here. So I am going to stamp it there like that. And then again, I'm just going to sprinkle this with silver embossing powder. And then I can fussy cut these out. Really, really easy to do because, of course, it's just a very, very simple shape. So let me just heat set this again with my heat tool. And then I can just cut these out. So I've got a large pair of scissors this time, and I'm just going to cut it like this. And so that's my Christmas tree. So I'll do exactly the same with the other one as well. So I've cut my Christmas trees out, and just to finish them off, I'm going to come back in with some of the Nouveau drops. There we go. What I'm doing is just getting rid of any blobs, and I'm going to add my trunk, and then I'm going to go around the outside of the trees just to frame it. So that's what my trees look like. So I'm just going to put those to one side now to dry. So here's another one that I made earlier. This has been drying overnight, done in exactly the same way. And let me just show you. This was from another piece of scrap paper that looks like this. And I've chosen sort of, you know, pinks and purples and blues just to tie in with the background. My backgrounds are dry enough now for me to start working on them. I've got some white acrylic paint and an angled paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint the bottom, my snow area, because of course some of this watercolour, Brusho watercolour, has bled through, which is absolutely fine. It was more for the texture that I wanted to use this paste, and any water reactive product you use will blend through modelling paste in this way, but you know, you can easily cover it up. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to paint this just to brighten it up as well, make it look more snowy. And I should probably end up giving this a couple of coats. So here are my beautiful backgrounds. They've been drying overnight, so the texture paste is now completely set and hardened. And I don't know whether you can see, I've added some stickles, which is just glitter glue, along the top of the snow as well, on all three of the cards. Let me just hold it up so that you can hopefully see, and that just adds a really, really nice touch. Now I've got my embellishments here. And I've added some of the cushioned sticky, double-sided sticky tape onto the back. So let's start off with this one here and glue this down. Now I've also done the same thing with a little sentiment as well, Let It Snow. So I'm going to put that somewhere like that. The Let It Snow is just from a stamp set, this stamp set here. So I've just stamped it onto a piece of cardstock, and I've embossed it with embossing glitter. I've used this one here. So I'm just going to glue this down. I've taken the backing off the sticky tape, and you can see here that I've used a mixture of this cushioned roll here as well as these little minute sticky squares as well. These are Do Craft ones, and I'm just going to pop this down. This will just give my piece just a little bit of dimension. I think I want it there like that. Yeah, that looks really cute. And then I can do exactly the same thing with my sentiment as well. I just want this slightly off. I don't want it completely in a line. There we go. Let it snow. I really like that. And then just as a final touch, I think I'm going to ink around the edge. And I'm just going to use my StazOn ink in Royal Purple to do that, just to finish it off. And then that one's done. So here's my finished postcard for my December calendar page. I'm not going to show you the completed calendar today because I've ordered a calendar blank and it hasn't arrived yet. So as soon as that comes, I shall piece it all together and I'll do a show and tell next week. But the other two calendar pages, postcards that I made, this is what I've done with these. So I've used the turquoise tree on this one here. I really like that. I've used Peacock Feathers Distress Oxides to emboss the Let It Snow, and all you do is you just stamp with the Distress Oxides, and then you add some clear embossing powder over the top, which embossing powder works beautifully with Distress Oxides, but if you want the colour of the Distress Oxide you must use clear embossing powder. So that's actually a really cheap way, if you've got Distress Oxides, to build up your embossing collection. And then the other postcard, I've used the other silver tree, and again I've used Distress Oxide to stamp my sentiment and emboss it, and I used Wilted Violet for that one there. And you can see on all of these that I've distressed around the inked around the edges. I used the Distress ink for this one and this one, and then I used my StazOn in Royal Purple for that one there. So that's those, but let me show you some other ideas as well. I've also been making some greetings cards, so I made a few more of the backgrounds, but I didn't add the snow this time. I just left them as a background, and I've just made some lovely cards. So these are the two trees that I had left over. So one, I've just used the tree, and you can see here that instead of using white paint for these snow that I put on with the bubble wrap, I've used grey. Hang on a second, it's just here. I used this colour here, which was neutral grey. This is a Pebeo Studio acrylics. I really like that. That's really cute, and I've just popped it onto a piece of cardstock. That was the other one that I showed you, and I've just printed out, stamped out Let It Snow. I haven't embossed that one. That was just stamped with StazOn Royal Purple, and again I've just mounted that onto a piece of card. I also made another Christmas tree. This time I just added the silver embossing powder straight onto the craft Christmas tree template, rather than fussy cutting around it and using it as a template onto white card. Now the backgrounds measure 6 inches by 4 inches, and for all of my cards I've cut these in half and then trimmed accordingly if I've needed to. So this measured 3 inches by 4 inches, and my tree was actually wider than the card that I had cut. But that was absolutely fine, because all I did was cut the cardstock slightly wider so that it hangs off the edges, and I just think that looks really cute. Now the difference with this one here as well is that I have used the thicker floristry wire. So that's the floristry wire that I've used on that one there. So I've just used a single wrapping, and of course the postcard I used this thinner curly wire, which I've wrapped over twice. So that's the difference. That's how they look. So you can, you know, if you've got one or the other of craft wires in your stash, you can use either. It really doesn't make any difference. They're both really cute. And then finally I made this cute little card here from a stamp that I had in my stash. This is the stamp. I think it came from Craft Stamper magazine. I stamped it with clear embossing powder, went over with purple embossing glitter, and then fussy cut it out till I ended up with this. Now of course you can see here that the hole is solid. So I just took my crocodile, punched out the centre, let me just show you, just like that, punched out the centre so that I could thread some string through the bauble so that it looked as if it was hanging from the card. So I just used some regular cotton thread, looped it through, and then I've just sellotaped it on the back, and then of course mounted that onto a piece of cardstock. So lots and lots of card ideas for you if you just want to make the backgrounds. So I hope that I've given you lots of ideas as to how you can use a background for lots of different projects. So the challenge this week is to make a festive background. As I say, it doesn't have to be Christmas related, any festivity, and try and use it in multiple ways. So I hope you've enjoyed the video this week, and if you have, as always, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, as it just lets YouTube know that you like what I'm doing, and let me know what you think in the comments below. And as I said earlier, I will be back in the week once my calendar has arrived, my calendar blank, and I'll show you how I put my calendar pages together. So take care everyone, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.